So to recap, if you are just joining me, I have recently broke down in another video, which I will show you here, what the Earth system is comprised of and how everything works. Basically, this God being or these God beings came and they placed two polar opposite magnets, one on the north and the south, to create this pragmatic bubble that's pretty much a magnetic sphere. And within this process, it sifted out all of the biomaterials or elements out of this dark void of a sea, which is the vastness of space, which is a dark water comprised of melanin and all the elements of the periodic table. Everything shrunk into the middle to create the ground, and there was two bubbles and this magnetic wormhole in the middle, and you have a sun on the top and a sun on the bottom. The process of pragmatism basically created this oxygen-based bubble, and in the process of separating these two magnets, it created this magnetic sphere, which has a wormhole in the middle, and that basically creates centrifugal force or gravity that causes all matter or all of the elements that are within the earth to go to the path of least resistance. And then you have the sun, which is the melanin from the vast ocean or the void of space that separated in this process when the oxygen met the melanin, and it pretty much created a bubble that made a solar fusion once it burned with the oxygen sun on either end of each magnet. So you have a sun at the top and you have a sun at the bottom. And the oxygen itself set the melanin on fire. And what was condensed in the middle, or was left, was the ground or all the periodic table of elements in the middle, which we call Earth, and the different layers, okay? And this was smashed into a very, condensed space because of the magnetism that's created from the two magnets smashing it together. And you have a magnetic sphere on the outside, which were alloy balls placed that kind of stick to this magnetic field, okay? And then you have the moon machine that was also placed to create a light grid that pretty much mapped out all of the light beings so that they could exist within this space physically. The light beings that were created were subject to the placement of the stars, and it was basically like a mapping or a grid of these light energies of the individuals who came here, basically knowing, their light bodies and what the numerical values are. They placed sigils in the sky so that they could map out the magnetic resonance, and basically all of the elements within this magnetic bubble began to kind of form onto or join onto their bodies. Within this light square grid, you have 196 angles of light, and these are called arcangles, but the technical term for them would be heptaminos or polyminos. And this is basically a complex type of light angles or different angles that create different beings, okay? So here we're talking about 196 squares, which is basically the grid that carves out all of the light beings that existed during that time and that were called forward, okay? And this is basically like a system mapping. It's basically your light body already pre-existed, but in order for you to physically manifest a physical body versus being just a light being, you needed to first map out your light body. And that's basically what this grid does. It mapped out the light bodies, and then the magnetic resonance made all matter join onto that particular light code or that individual. This light mapping is basically done through the moon machine, which has this sacred geometry pattern. It has 12 gates. Each gate has 30 degrees or 30 degree angles of light on each, all going in different directions, all the way around, which is what gives you time actually. So you're talking about 12 hours, you're talking about 24 hours, you're talking about the months within a year. These 12 gates of light kind of project to give the illusion of time. And it is a machine that is actually technology. It is filled with xenon, which is a luminiferous element, and it glows and basically creates these different angles of light that bounce onto the alloy balls that are connected to the magnetic sphere. But it also creates the light grid that carves out all of our light codes basically. This machine is multifaceted. So not only is it carving out all of our light codes, it's also a reincarnation machine or a time machine that can kind of reset your soul. Basically, it draws you in with paramagnetic elements and uses the free radicals or attracts the free radicals, which is melanin, and pulls you back in so that you can be reincarnated into another body. It spits you back out one of these 12 gates of light, and basically wherever you are in proximity to which gate of light is shining at which place when you pass away, your soul will be drawn into this tunnel, which is the 30 degrees of light, which is what people see when they have near-death experiences. And you would basically reincarnate into another body based on the genetic code or information that is available within this machine, which is comprised of vanadium dioxide, a smart glass that retains memory. So the machine draws your photon light body in, or your free radicals in, and basically you go through this gate where there's a process where you kind of ping pong through the machine, but also you're engaging with the vanadium dioxide, which is a memory-based chemical, and it pretty much holds memory of all the incarnations that you've ever had, and shows you basically, okay, well, you were in this lineage, this was your family, here's your DNA or light code, and your light body chooses where it can go to reincarnate based on the DNA imprint that is within the VO2. So this machine is providing the light projection, and it's also reincarnating us and sending us back in time to become children again and incarnate into bodies. And also our souls, or our photon light energy, is what powers this machine. It's like a very symbiotic relationship. Everything is held together by the magnetic resonance, and the magnetic resonance is created using these two magnets, with the moon machine working in tandem with the light simulation, holding everything together and keeping all matter together. And we, in essence, are reincarnating through this machine, which in essence keeps the entire simulation running of light that exists within this particular matrix. Okay, this pretty much is the matrix. This light simulation is also your days, your months, your years, your zodiac signs, everything encompassed in one light diagram. So the grid itself is created through this machine that was ancient alien technology. Okay, beings that came from another planet to see this place created this. So I want you to think of the energy within this magnetic sphere as set. Basically, there's a magnetic resonance, and there's a certain frequency threshold in terms of the light beings that were created within this realm that are kind of trapped in here, where we cannot leave outside of this bubble. However, there is a threshold in terms of how souls can exist within this space. It is basically like cymatics, okay? And you have a set number of light beings that can be here. If any other light beings come into this space, okay, and occupy this space that do not belong here, okay, then you are going to force a movement of sorts in order to accommodate space within the cymatic. So think of it as like this resonance is created and it has no room. It's like being in a room with a big boulder and you're smashed up against the wall and you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I make room for myself, right? So I want you to think of the magnetic resonance as this particular sound or this frequency that has or takes up space. It's basically like cymatics, where you put salt on a plate and you play this particular sound resonance and creates a shape or sacred geometry based on the sound resonance, and the salt on the plate takes the path of least resistance. Well, that's kind of how we are within this earth simulation. So anything that comes from the outside of this simulation or comes within it that doesn't necessarily have a calculation is going to force a severe change or breakdown in the magnetic resonance, meaning that we had a set number of light beings that were created to be here. And the moment that we have more than what is of the threshold, meaning that we've been incarnating, we've been here, everything has been running fine because the numerical values are set. The minute that someone comes along that increases that threshold, meaning that there is no room for them, okay, keep that in mind, then they are going to disrupt the system of magnetic resonance here. And pretty much you have this system that's set in place, and anytime you have a breakdown in the moon machine where something is threatening to change, meaning that we're changing our minds, we're changing our past, we're taking different courses, we're awakening, and we are having these different things coming in and out of our reality, you will have an increase in earthquakes because everything is threatening to come undone. So of course the plates that basically are within Earth's crust are shifting, and you're getting earthquakes in diverse places because the magnetic resonance is no longer 100% holding everything packed tightly because of all the changes that have been happening. So the birth of the man-child disrupts the moon machine, which is why it states that this woman with the moon under her feet and the crown of 12 stars, meaning that she has the crown of 12 stars, which represents the zodiac, which represents the 12, was actually 13 tribes, but all of the tribes of Israel. And she also is set to give birth to this man-child that is to rule the nations with a rod of iron, okay, which we will get into. However, the birth of this son births the new sun, because you have the complete and utter shutdown of the moon machine based on the fact that the magnetic resonance is no longer able to hold or withstand all matter and keep everybody on the same resonance, because there is a birth of a child that was not supposed to be born within this system. And I will get into how that happened, okay, because I know personally how it happened, but the child was not supposed to be born within the earth realm, and they technically never existed. This child never existed within the reincarnation system of earth. This child is born from another space, which is the quantum reality, with this particular woman who is of a certain Christ lineage, okay. She creates, or she does a thing that creates this son in the quantum realm, okay. He gets caught up to the throne of God, and then you have the physical birth, which brings this man-child into the earth realm, which is a disruption because he and his energy or his frequency did not exist. So this basically shifts all the mathematics and the thing that holds this realm together. And his birth as the 13th Christ bloodline pretty much resets and shuts down the moon machine and everything else. The birth of this child shutting down the moon machine and causing the reset, which is depicted in Revelation chapter 6 verse 12, where the sun turns black as sackcloth, is talking about the magnetic resonance coming undone, the outer layer of the sun's corona basically exploding and causing this massive solar flash that pretty much dissipates all of everything basically that doesn't have a light body on earth. So you're talking about the complete and utter shutdown of the moon machine. The stars fall from heaven because the magnetic resonance is no longer holding them together, and the moon also falls, okay, because that machine is held together by the magnetic resonance. And once this child is born and they pretty much disrupt the entire system, the new sun, which is the SON and the SUN, will be birthed. It's kind of like a trigger. And the reason why the devil or Satan is angry with this woman for giving birth to this man-child, the reason is, if you understand what Satan actually represents, you're talking about the third eye, or you're talking about the pine cone shaped kaleidoscope and the different jinn or daemons that were created based on the chopped up body parts of Osiris. Osiris is the OS, which is the operating system of the iris, okay? And this is talking about the third eye. So when you're talking about jinn and daemons and these different demonic entities, or the fallen angles are the fallen angels, okay? You're talking about these different diversified angles that are the chopped up body parts of Osiris, and they're used by malevolent beings to do their bidding within the earth realm. So the folklore of Isis, Set, and Osiris is about Isis is the is, or the or the mama, or the mother energy that gives birth to this man-child. And you have Osiris, which is the operating system of the iris, or the third eye. And then you have Set, which is Set's on, or Suit's on, or Satan, okay, which is the he chops up his brother's body parts. Is basically symbolically saying that we fell into matter, and this pine-shaped kaleidoscope was created that you could manipulate the different angles of light into these different light energies or light beings. So saying the fallen angels are the fallen angles. And what you have in books like the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon are these different jinn or daemons that were created through this fall into matter when we came into this earth realm. So the fallen angles or angels are these light codes or light beings that come from the main source. They do. However, they are chopped up in various parts, which is why when you read books like the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon, you see that they're talking about these jinn or these daemons or these genies basically coming in malformed function, and they're looking kind of crazy with different amalgamated body parts, and sometimes they smell and they have these different things going on. Is because they are manifesting as a chopped up portion, meaning that they have different light angles that kind of put them together. And when you're drawing out these sigils in the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon, you're calling for these different light energies in different parts because they have different properties, okay? This one angle can bring you wealth. This one angle can bring you war. This one angle can do a certain thing. And they pretty much constructed these light angles based on what they could do. In and of themselves, they are just emanations of the main light energy or the power of the all that is, which is the entirety of God, right? They are of the body of Osiris. They are of the light, right? However, they are different angles and they have different types of, manifestations. Some of them good and some of them evil, right? They can do both because God is both. And having the knowledge of good and evil means that, behold, man has become like one of us with the knowledge of good and evil. So these beings do have the ability to do evil and the ability to do good. It does not make them inherently either or. It is the malevolent beings, okay, that are using their energy to do their bidding within the earth realm.